All right, welcome to Uncensored Conservatism. This is episode number 357, a continuing series today on Trump 2.0, his administration. And the big news this past week, is that former FBI Director James Comey has been indicted by a grand jury in the Eastern District of Virginia. Um, Apparently, he lied to Congress or something about that and leaked information to put forth a particular narrative. Now, I don't think that Comey is going to be perp walked by anybody, so we won't get to see that. I think he'll probably turn himself in peacefully and cry about it or something like that. Personally, I would really love to see John Brennan perp walked, and I really don't think he's going to get any jail time, even if they find him guilty. You got to remember that this trial will occur in the Eastern District of Virginia, which is a very liberal jury pool. And even though they'll say, yeah, he's guilty, but he did it against Trump, so therefore, they'll acquit him. And of course, the left and Democrats are saying that, well, the president is going after his political opponents. And so this is a little illustration of the lack of logic on the left. James Comey has been characterized as apolitical, but Donald Trump is going after a political opponent. So how can you go against a political opponent if the opponent is apolitical? It just doesn't work that way, right? So it's kind of weird. And, the left cannot get this concept called logic down. But here's an instance of, in the context of James Comey, of how logic works. Now, we've been told that when it comes to Trump, he being the president, that no one is above the law. And James Comey was a subordinate of the president, so therefore he's not above the law either. So that, my friends, is called logic. The other news is that HHS Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and Donald Trump announced the possibility of a link between autism and the use of Tylenol during pregnancy. Now, I haven't read this study, so I really can't make an informed decision on this, but I do know that it's causing for some consternation up on Capitol Hill, especially among those who like to dabble in the stock market. And liberals are literally taking to social media while pregnant or whatever and deliberately downing 3 tablets of Tylenol. This is what the left, Democrats, but I repeat myself, have become. I mean, and this is kind of funny too about it's like these morons who drive around in their cars by themselves with a mask on, fearing they're going to get COVID or something. Just a virtue signal, or I don't know what the fuck it is. I gotta wonder why all these TikTok videos of people take these screeds while sitting in a car. I guess the phone sits up there in the holder or something. And, when these people... There was this guy passing me one day on the street, and he had a mask around his chin. And as he approached me, he put the mask up over his nose, and I deliberately fake sneezed, and he ran away from me. This is what these idiots are, okay? And by the way, this applies to pregnant females, and I thought males could get pregnant. According to the trans ideology, a male can get pregnant. So, I don't know about this Tylenol thing. And this is kind of funny. This is what Trump should do. He should come out and say that oxygen is good for people. And let's see what they're going to do about that one. Let's see what they say. What is going to be their reaction? I'm expecting them to put plastic bags over their heads and scream. But that's what the state of the left and Democrats, but I repeat myself, is right now. It's fine. They want to react like that. Just keep the fucking bag on your head. Better yet, what if it was like a bag and they had the mask on, the face diaper, the COVID face diaper on their heads in case they got COVID through the bag over their head? How does that work? Would they film themselves in a car? I mean, this is how ludicrous the whole thing has become. I mean, can't they admit that maybe Trump could be right 1 out of 100 times, even if you want to give him that one? I mean, this is how ludicrous this whole anti-Trump thing has become with those on the left and the Democrats. But I repeat myself. Yeah, Jimmy Kimmel's back on the air after a 1 week suspension by ABC, and he issued a narcissistic non-apology about comments he made in the wake of the assassination of Charlie Kirk. Of course, it's all about Jimmy Kimmel. He managed to do a few crocodile tears there. Again, it was all about him. Fact is, Jimmy Kimmel is not funny, okay? You take away the clapping seals and the laughs in the audience and run that monologue without an audience, and you're not going to know where the joke is. That's a rule of thumb. Just take out the laughing audience, and if you laugh at something, then it's a joke. If not, it's not a joke. Oh, of course, his comments were in the reaction to the Kirk killing, but they were tame in comparison to some others on social media by the left and Democrats. But I repeat myself, some of them were like really crude and horrible, cold-hearted, and you know, they are what they are. I mean, there is free speech out there. And it's usually some blue-haired transgender freak or, some white female suburban wine-sipping liberal mother or whatever who are making these comments about Charlie Kirk. I mean, can't we let the guy get cold in the ground before we come up with these comments and these videos and your 15 minutes of fame trying to be cool and edgy? Trump administration declared Antifa a terrorist organization, although we've been assured that it's not an organization, it's an ideology, which makes me wonder who pays for those masks and clubs and t-shirts they wear. And I mean, these are not just little face masks, face diapers. These are respirators. And the professional signs, who's making them up? Money's coming from somewhere there. And it's kind of weird because, and this is again leftist lack of logic, the anti-fascists are the fascists. That's the funny thing about the whole thing. So Donald Trump gave a speech at the United Nations, and as you know, the escalator carrying him and Melania Trump to the General Assembly place apparently stopped in the middle of their ascent or descent, and anybody who's been on an escalator who stops knows how disorienting that can be. To make matters worse, his teleprompter went out as he was giving his speech, leading some to believe it's being called Escalator Gate now. I mean, it's really a joke and a meme on the right, but the left is taking it seriously, of course, because they have to. And Trump had to ad-lib while the teleprompter was repaired, and was eventually repaired. And sometimes he's really good at ad-libbing and speaking off the cuff, but sometimes he does tend to ramble on and on and on. So there is that there. Then some idiot down in Dallas decided he was going to go shoot up an ICE facility, aiming at ICE agents transporting detainees. And unfortunately, the moron shot and killed 2 of the detainees. And again, now the left is media and Democrats are twisting this one around. They're now claiming that apparently the shooter down there in Dallas may have been a right-wing person who was trying to take out the detainees, which makes absolutely no fucking sense. A conservative is happy that the person is in detention and may be deported and on their way out of the United States. They're not going to kill them. Because obviously this guy was shooting at ICE agents. And this is what happens when you portray your opponent as nothing but Nazis and fascists. There's a lot of crazy people out there, and some of them have guns, and some of them are good with guns, and some of them aren't good with guns. But this is what happens out there. And for instance, look at all the twisted narratives despite the writings on the bullet casings left in Utah when Charlie Kirk was killed, and in this case, down in Dallas, anti-fascist type comments, or, the pro-trans ideology stuff up out in Utah. They just try to twist that, even though the fact that it's obviously left-wing violence. These are right-wing people doing this because all right-wingers use their guns. It's really weird, but it's not right-wingers out there who are calling out for violence against Supreme Court justices by name. They're not shooting congressmen at softball practice. They're not doing really good with neck shots against conservative leaders. They're not shooting at ICE agents in Dallas. They're not throwing bricks at federal law enforcement vehicles in California. And they're not surrounding ICE buildings in Portland, Oregon 24/7. So there is that. Again, we're in some weird territory where they talk about the right wing having 90% of the guns. Conservatives possess 90% of the guns, but it's the 10% using it for political violence. I mean, maybe Trump, maybe this is how he makes America great again. Flip-flop things. Speaking of guns and the Second Amendment, I present this fine young lady. Oh, is that? God, that's perfect. Anyway. And they just can't help themselves. It's like they have diarrhea of the mouth, or I don't know, Tourette's syndrome, or maybe it's like demonic possession and they need an exorcism or something. I don't know, but on one hand, well, we got to tone down the rhetoric, and that goes for both sides, and then they raise the temperature with the rhetoric. So they just can't help themselves. And unfortunately, I don't think we're finished with violence, and I don't think it's going to come from the right. It's going to come from the left, because they have a proven track record of late. So let's go with that. And of course, Gavin Newsom out there in California virtue signaled with his law about ICE agents not wearing masks and identifying themselves, even though they have their identification on them. They wear masks for a reason. But this is an idea. Some new masks for them. Put a Gavin Newsom mask on them. Pretty simple. Simple thing to do. And, you won't know the difference. But anyway, this is not going to be enforced. Gavin Newsom needs to pick up the Constitution and read it once in a while. There's this thing called the Supremacy Clause, and his state law has no effect on federal law enforcement officials. So go pound sand. Yeah, I think a couple of more boats have been taken out carrying drugs to the United States by smugglers. They've been sent to Davy Jones' locker. And soon you'll be seeing Democrats on the left, but I repeat myself, coming out in favor of drug smuggling into the United States. They were just a bunch of Venezuelans out for a joyride one day in their speedboat. By the way, I read that the Dominican Republic, at one point they said there was no evidence on one of the boats had any drugs, and the Dominican Republic Navy or Coast Guard picked up several kilos of illicit cocaine from that ship or that boat that was sunk by the U.S. military. There's still about the gender-affirming care, and there's a couple of cases in the Supreme Court coming up about transgenders that I'll get to in a future episode. But, basically gender-affirming care in counseling is one thing, but most of the other stuff, some of these hormones leave you sterile by blocking puberty. Because if you're Joanna, who think you're John, you still have a uterus, but now you're and ovaries, but now you're sterile. So, but this was, a hallmark of the Nazi regime. But all conservatives are Nazis because, and again, that's their lack of logic. We're Nazis because we don't support experimenting on the mentally ill and sterilizing the mentally ill. And by the mentally ill, I mean transgender people. Oh yeah, Kamala. She has a new book out. 107 Days. That's right. It really got to suck to be her. She's in the same company as Hillary Clinton, so it sucks to be both of them because both of them managed to lose the presidency to a former reality TV star who was a New York real estate developer before he entered politics. So it's really got to suck for both of them to have that on their resumes. And anyway, her book is called 107 Days, and I guess, you know, if she had 108 days and another $2 billion, she would have lost by less electoral votes. But whatever, no, she was just a suck-ass candidate for president. And you got to feel sorry for the ghostwriter. You know, that's a vapid brain you have to listen to. And it's, I guess they tried to do their best with it, but it's still I haven't read it, but I've read some of the excerpts, and it's really not professional writing, in my opinion. So, you know, but then again, there's only so much you can do with a word salad. So, and then she went on The View as part of her book tour, and you know, the clapping seals clapped at the appropriate time, and the harpies nodded their head and oh yes, oh you're so right, Anna Navarro, a supposed Republican. Oh, you're so right, Kamala. Oh, you're so right. That's what I was saying too. I thought you were going to win. Da, da, da. But then she goes on, Kamala goes on to describe Trump as a communist dictator, which here I thought he was a fascist all along. I've been told by the left that he's a fascist. Democrats call him a fascist. He's running the Gestapo. ICE agents are Gestapo. That's what I've read. So does Kamala know that fascism and communism are like opponents of one another? But then again, we're talking about a vapid brain here. Yeah, it's stupid at its worst, you know. J.B. Pritzker, the fat slob governor of Illinois, he's still out there trying to make noise as well, if Gavin Newsom is the face of the Trump resistance, then Pritzker is the very large body of the Trump resistance, which, I mean, if they're going to be vying for the 2028 Democratic nomination to be the presidential candidate against probably J.D. Vance, this is going to be very interesting. Hair gel versus fat, but we should thank our lucky stars that it's not jazz hands from Minnesota, so there is a silver lining. And finally, apparently there's a funding bill that may result in a government shutdown come the end of this month. President Trump has told Chuck Schumer and Hakeem Jeffries that no, we're not reinstating funding for the U.S. Agency for International Development, NPR, Planned Parenthood, PBS, gender affirming care, or health care, illegal aliens. And he also told them that he has to learn how to make a cheeseburger correctly. You don't put the cheese on before the hamburger is cooked, which Chuck Schumer actually did in a campaign video, from what I understand. It's actually quite funny. You look at he's sitting there talking, or a July 4th video, and you sit there and you look at him talking on this day we celebrate America's freedom, or something like that. And he has a spatula in his hand and this little red, white, and blue apron on. And you look at the hamburgers in the background on the grill, sizzling on the grill, and there's cheese on top of raw meat, which is not the way you grill a hamburger in New York or anywhere else. Anyway, that's it for today. Thanks. Have a great day. More pleasant tomorrow.